owe you yet?
I do, yes. $27.
Hello everybody, happy Wednesday evening live tutorial stream. How are you all doing? This evening, Julie's vacuuming. That's a task that's better once it's done. I don't think anybody really loves vacuuming. But welcome to the Beading Dreams live tutorial stream. We are doing adjustable charm bangle this evening. That is one that is, we've actually done this one a couple of times. We've done it at least once before. Dang, wine and chicken tenders. I have chicken coconut curry that I will heat up in between streams and stuff in my face, all of it in my face, because it is very good. And I have Prosecco, because Linda brought Prosecco, and we just had to try it and see if it was good. So yeah, adjustable charm bangle. We've done this one before online. We've done this one in person. This is actually one of our older classes, but it's a really fun one, and let's try that again. It's got a really good technique in it for making a sharp bend in a piece of thick wire. And this is something that, believe it or not, if you do a lot of forming with thicker wires, this is something that is really good to know. Also, I want to remind everyone that we are doing the Pearl of Lao Tzu Part 2 this evening on our Buttonless podcast with Allison and Heather. That's going to be at 7:30. The script is literally hot off the press because I just finished writing it. But there's let me spoil it a little. There's murder, there's aliens, there's legal battles, and more barbishing. So don't forget to tune back in at 7:30 for that. And don't forget that Discord and Twitch don't always send out notifications for a second stream of the night. So set an alarm on your phone for 7:30 to come back and hear the conclusion of the absolute lunacy that is the tale of the Pearl of Lao Tzu. But before we do that, we are going to make a bracelet. What do you need to make this bracelet? You are going to need some wire. Now, so this bracelet is, and if I had been prepared, I would have a photo of it to throw up on screen, but of course I'm not. So if you've ever seen the bracelets that were popularized by Alex and Ani, which is a designer brand and have since been copied pretty thoroughly by a whole lot of other people. It's basically a wire bracelet upon which you can put charms, and what it does is it will adjust bigger to slide over your hand and then snap to smaller so that it's not super jangly on your wrist. So if you have issues with wearing bangles because your knuckles are very much bigger than your wrist, and they don't squish down really small, this is a really fun project to do because you can have a bangle style bracelet with charms that's not going to just be like sliding all the way up, to your armpit, because that's never fun. So you're going to need some heavy gauge wire. I'm using 16 gauge bronze. 16 gauge is my preferred gauge for this. If you want a chunkier bracelet, you can use 14 gauge. You can use 18 gauge, but it's a little flimsy. So 16 and 14 are my preferred gauges. I'm using bronze snipe, but you can use pretty much anything that you've got around: sterling silver, gold filled, brass, bronze, copper, colored wire, craft wire. Be aware that things like craft wire, colored wire, and copper wire are going to be a little bit more malleable and less sturdy than things like bronze, sterling silver, brass, and gold filled. So if you're making this for somebody who is harder on their jewelry, whether that is yourself or someone else, you might want to consider, one of those sturdier wires. But really, any kind of wire that you have around, you can use. We're going to use about a foot of it. We're going to wind up cutting some of that off, so we're not going to use the whole foot. But if you give yourself a foot to start with, that's going to ensure that you have enough to complete your project. In addition to your wire, we are also going to need some charms, hence the adjustable charm bangle. You can't really have a charm bangle without charms. You can use pre-made charms like I'm using here, or you can make your own using, oh my gosh, I miss quesadillas so much. And gluten-free and corn tortillas they're not the same. I'm sorry, but God, just a real quesadilla. Oh my gosh. Not worth the migraine, but some days I'm like this close. So I've got charms, and then what's important is that you have a ring for each charm that's big enough to allow it to go onto your wire and move freely. So I've got some 4mm jump rings. I'm thinking those are going to work. If they don't, I might have to go grab something bigger. You need all your regular tools, so your chain nose pliers, a round nose pliers, a heavy duty wire cutter because we're going to be cutting that 16 gauge bronze. And then the one thing that you're going to need that's a little out of the ordinary is you're going to need a file that has corners. So this can be a triangular file or a square file. Square file was the first one I grabbed, so that's the one I'm going to use. And it couldn't hurt to have a flat file hanging out just to smooth our cuts out on our wire. So I'm going to start with cutting my 12-inch piece of wire, and then I'm going to bend one side, fit it to my wrist, and then mark and bend the other side. Now, since I said mark, it means I am going to need some kind of marking device, either a Sharpie or a scribe. So I'm going to go ahead and use my centering punch as a scribe. So I'm just going to set that to the side because I don't need that quite yet. So I'm going to start with my wire, and I'm going to cut myself about a foot. 3, 6, 12, okay. Approximately a foot. I don't know what I did with my ruler from the other day, but it's gone. So that's a guesstimate. Like I said, a foot is, hi Corvus! Thank you, I'm so happy to be back. It had the audacity to snow while I was in Wisconsin, which one would think is expected because you're going to Wisconsin in January. Snow is not an unexpected thing, but it was like their first real snow of the year. Waited for me. So not a fan. So not a fan. We're supposed to have snow here in Texas on Monday, but they took it out of the forecast, so now we're just supposed to have nasty cold, like 9 degrees. Yuck. But I'm very happy to be back. Very, very, very happy to be back. I'm not happy for the 9 degrees, but happy to be home. Miss my kitties. They missed me. Well, so first they admitted they missed me, and then they snubbed me for a couple of hours, and then they reiterated that they missed me. So, all right. So I'm going to start to... It was yuck. Yuck, yuck, yuck. No snow. Okay, so I'm going to take this and make my first file cut. So here's the thing. Here is the thing that will help you make sharper corners in thick wire. Because if I just take that, and I'm going to do this for you because this is a longer piece than we need. So if I just take this and I just bend it like so, what I get is a very rounded corner. Okay, I don't get a sharp bend, which is what I want. So I'm going to go ahead and chop that off. And I want this piece that I bend to be about... How can I have no rulers, y'all? Yo, could somebody bring me a ruler?
Yes.
We haven't taped one on your table yet?
Well, one's on my table, but then I put my new work surface, thank you, above it, on top of it, and I can't see through it. Oops. Thank you, Header. Ugh. No. Yeah, that's fine. There's a reason. There's a reason I don't live in Canada or Wisconsin, because yuck. Okay, so this part that I'm going to bend around, this is going to be the first part of my adjustable bit, and I want that to be about, and I eyeballed it well, about 1/2 inch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my wire, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this cut end, which you can see I did not flush cut because I wasn't paying attention. I'm going to go ahead and file that flat. And that's just going to enable me to have a nicer finish when I bend it around. So I just want to flatten out that end. And Julie, it was like a whirlwind trip to Wisconsin and Illinois, so next time I will have to make sure that I see you. This one was pretty much all family time. So that's my flattened edge. So now I'm going to take my ruler, or measuring device that Heather so kindly brought me, and I'm going to mark 1/2 inch from the end. And I can do that with my scribe. I could also do that with a Sharpie. So either one is totally fine. Now I'm going to take my file that has corners and I'm going to file a notch at that mark. So I'm going to see if I can prop it up on the judgy wood so you guys can see it a little bit better. Okay, so there's my mark right there. And I'm going to take the corner of my file, and this is one of the few instances that I will recommend that you saw your file back and forth, because even though the proper way to file is going to be to push forward and then come back and push forward again, I find it's really hard to get a good notch if you're doing that. So this is one of the only times that I'll be, you know, okay, and will actually suggest that you saw your file back and forth. So you can see what I'm doing is I'm creating a notch in that wire. There, you can see it right there. And I'm going for, I want to file about halfway through the wire. Now, words of caution about this. Okay, once you've filed this and bent it, do not try to unbend it. Okay, because it's going to break off. So if you screwed up, either make it work or abandon all hope and just cut it off and start over. Because since you've thinned out this wire so very much, there's really no recovering from this if you bend it in the wrong place. So I'm about 1/3 of the way through. There, you can see that notch. So I just want to go a little bit more, so I'm about halfway through. The more you file, the more material you remove, the sharper your bend is going to be, but also the less material you're going to have there, so you are going to have to deal with a little bit of compromised structural integrity. So half is usually a good happy medium. I'm going to take a minute and just straighten this out because it's annoying me. Okay. There we go. Okay, so there's my notch. And now I'm gonna go ahead and take my chain nose pliers. So once again, you got one shot at this, so hopefully you did it deep enough, and you're just going to hold with your chain nose on one side of that notch, and you're going to just press against your finger to get your 90 degrees. So see how much sharper that bend is, this one that I just made, versus this one where I didn't file at all. So you've got a much more defined corner on the one with the file. So this is a technique that you can use anytime that you are trying to bend a sharp 90-degree angle in a piece of metal that's fairly thick. This technique, it goes across a lot of media, but basically you've got this thick thing and you want to, you know, bend it up and make it a sharp angle. So what you do is you remove some of the material in that joint, and that's what allows you to get a good stiff, not stiff, sharp is what I was looking for, sharp bend. So now I'm going to take my round nose pliers and I'm going to bend that extra piece of wire, this one right here, into a loop, and I'm going to do that perpendicular to the plane of my wire. So I'm just going to bend it so that it's essentially going down. Like so. Okay, so if you're looking at the flat plane of the wire here, that loop's coming down and around, and I do want to make sure that it's closed, which right now it's not. So I'm just going to take my chain nose and just give it a little squeeze. So I've got a nice closed loop that's pointing downward. Now I'm going to take my wire, bend it around, thread it through that loop. Now you can see that this is creating a less than ideal shape right now. So I'm going to take a minute and grab a bracelet mandrel, BRB. Your hair looks good.
Thank you.
It's up to you whether you want a round one or an oval one. I picked a round one because that was literally the first thing that I grabbed. But the good thing about using a round mandrel is you can always make your piece oval just by giving it a little squish. So I'm going to take my piece and I'm going to bring it around my mandrel. I'm going to pull it nice and tight. Okay, and I'm up here at the very top of my mandrel where, you know, nobody's wrist is that size. But what I'm going to do after I've pulled it tight and gotten my nice rounded shape, ooh, it's like a reverse megaphone. Then I'm going to slide it down my mandrel to get what's more of a, you know, kind of a normal size, and that's going to keep my shape. Now remember, with this bangle, the idea is it's going to expand to go over your hand and contract to go over your wrist. So what I'm looking for at this point is something that looks like it would be comfortable on my wrist, which I think is going to be about here. So now I'm going to take my other piece of wire, and I want about, I don't want too much. I want about 1.5 inches of overlap. So I'm going to take my scribe and I'm going to mark this loose piece of wire right at about 1.5 inches from my initial bend. And no, I'm not going to measure that. I'm just going to eyeball it. Okay, so now I have made my, okay, so now I've made my mark. I can see it, it's right there. And now I'm going to take my triangle or my square file, and I'm going to make another notch right at that mark. I'm going to be thinking about which way am I going to need to bend this, which is going to actually be this direction that my file is pointing. So I'm actually going to make the notch on this side. Oh dear. Alas, poor Mousie. I'm pretty sure cats have other things to play with. And if they don't, they will find them. My cat's new favoriteest thing to play with is the box that my chest freezer came in. And the strapping things that were wrapped around the box. Those are their new favorite toys. Which, once again, at least they're not bringing, you know, live toys into my house. So I really cannot complain. Oh, yay! That's awesome. Yes, hair ties must be up out of reach of said kitties because they are one of Elton's favorite things to hunt and kill. Which, again, still better than live birds. Okay, so now I'm going to take this and I'm going to make that notch. Yes, the strapping things have been mysteriously moving around my house. Apparently they self-motate into different rooms. But yes, they're having great fun. And then it was, of course, a giant rectangular box, so I folded it flat and then put it down on the floor like a triangle, and it's just it's the tunnel of chasing. It's pretty funny. Okay, so now once I decide what I'm doing with my glasses, I'm going to make that second notch.
Your glasses being mean.
Well, no, it's my eyes more than my glasses. My eyes are just being 44-year-old eyes. Okay, so there we go.
Why'd you buy that age?
Well, they were new when I bought them.
That's
You're just out of warranty now.
that's fair.
So again, we're going for halfway through. Don't get too overzealous. Turbo's been stashing crinkle balls. At least crinkle balls don't decay. I found a desiccated snake in my bathroom before I left. Don't know where that was stashed, but it had definitely been DED for quite a while. Okay, so now I'm going to take this and I'm going to bend it against my pliers. So once again, this one's actually even a better corner than the last one, and you can really see how the removal of that material facilitates the making of the corner. So again, well, it's a good thing I don't need that anymore because I just dropped it on the floor, but either a triangular or a square file will work for this. A triangular file has a slightly wider angle, so it'll take off a little bit more, kind of width. A square file gives you a sharper angle. All right, and then one second while I fix just a teeny tiny little mix up. There we go. Okay, so you need to make sure when you're doing this that the way that this project works is you've got one loop going this way and one loop going this way. And now that I've gotten this far along on the project, anybody who was like, I have no idea what you're doing, lady, probably has figured it out by now because these things are literally everywhere. So what I actually had to do is I had to twist this wire a bit to make this go the right way. And so now I've got this kind of weird wobble in my wires. So I'm just going to take my chain nose and I'm going to, hi Keiko, I'm going to pull that out a little bit just to make it rounded like so. And again, so the idea behind this construction is that it goes like this to go over your hand and then it springs back to this on your wrist. So now that I've got my bend here, I'm going to again cut this to about 1/2 inch. I can measure it or eyeball it. We'll see. I'm going to eyeball it. This may or may not be a good choice. I'm going to grab that flat file and I just want to file that end flat. And now before I bend this closed, I'm going to go ahead and put my charms on, which means I'm going to set this aside and I'm going to go back to my charms and my jump rings. So you can literally use any charms you want. You can use as many charms as you want. I've just picked 3 here. I've got my little enamel tarot card, I've got an owl, and I've got this little toothy guy. Thank you, Keiko. That's okay. Don't forget to tune back in at 7:30, Keiko and everybody else, for the part 2 of the Pearl of Lao Tzu. It's crazy. There people get abducted by aliens, people get shot. We go back in time. It's going to be a fun one. So it's the conclusion of that crazy story. And don't forget that Twitch and Discord do not always notify you of our second stream, so make sure you set a reminder on your phone. So I'm going to go ahead and put a ring on each of these charms, and I'm trying these 4mm jump rings. I think they're going to work. but I might have to go get some bigger ones. Yes, so Lori brings up a good point of, you know, if you do this a lot, you can make your own measurement system based on your fingers, because theoretically you always have those with you. So yeah, you can, yeah, so she'll use the first knuckle of her pinky to the end of the finger. The one that I used to always use for simple loops was the width of my index finger. You can also take a Sharpie and you can draw a 1/2 inch on your finger if you're going to be doing a lot of wire wrapping. That way you don't have to refer back to your ruler all the time. Yeah, works like a charm. People have been doing that for ages. Okay, so I've got my ring. I opened it. I'm going to drop my charm onto it, and then when you're dealing with jump rings, 2 chain nose pliers is always going to be your best bet. And I want to make sure I close that ring completely. And before I do the others, let's just do a test, shall we? See how this works. Yes, it does go on, and it does allow movement, so that is what we want. So that means, yes, I can go ahead and put the jump rings on my other 2 charms. It's important that your jump ring is thick enough and sturdy enough to hold your charm, because especially on a bracelet, things get, you know, jangled around a lot, and so it's important that you're using a thick enough and heavy enough jump ring to withstand all of that wear and tear. It's also important that you're using a jump ring that's big enough in diameter that it will fit on your wire and allow movement. So sometimes that requires a little bit of finagling depending upon the thickness of the loop of your charm. Alright, so that's my 3rd jump ring. Again, I want to make sure that it's all the way closed. And then I'm going to take those 3 charms and I'm going to thread them onto this piece of wire. Maybe. Cool. Alright, so there's 1 and 2 and 3. Alright, and then I'm going to take this wire and I'm going to curl it around my other wire to make the other side of my bracelet. I'm just going to take my round nose and I'm just going to curl that around, and I'm going to catch that other wire in it. And at some point I'm going to need to kind of move my grip so that I'm catching it from the inside so I can pull it all the way around. And I do, of course, need to make sure that it is all the way closed, which it is now, and that it's facing the right direction, which it isn't. See how I kind of twisted it out of plane? Like, this one's good, but this one's a little wonky. So I need to carefully and judiciously, using my chain nose pliers, I need to adjust that. I need to bring it back into line so that it looks like so. So this is actually the goal. This is what we're looking for, is these 2 loops that are going opposite ways into each other. And then what I'm going to do, since this whole thing relies on tension, is I'm just going to pull these as far away from each other as possible, let them snap back, fix any shape issues that I might have. And there we go. That's our adjustable charm bangle. So again, the idea is this baby will expand to go over my knuckles and then snap back to fit my wrist a little bit more comfortably. You can make it whatever size you want. Again, you just need to remember that it does need to go over your hand, because this one does not have a clasp. It's got the adjustability factor, which is great, but it doesn't have a clasp, so it does need to be able to get big enough to go over your knuckles, or you're not going to be able to wear it. So that's it. That's my adjustable charm bangle. Again, super easy, but this, I just want to take a second, thank you, Julie, to emphasize the importance of, once again, this technique of filing out a notch in order to make a sharp bend. Because once again, once you're using heavier gauges of wire, sheet, rectangular wire, things like that, that is something that it's important to know if you want nice, crisp, clean lines. So that's our adjustable charm bangle tutorial for this Wednesday evening, kicking off our streaming week with a fun and easy one. So don't forget to tune back in on this channel, twitch.tv/beadingdream, in about half an hour, about 7:30, for our Buttonless podcast, where we will tell you the second half of the Tale of the Pearl of Lao Tzu. And then tomorrow night, Thursday, is going to be a live merchandise sale. Friday is going to be a fire tutorial, and Saturday we are on Zoom. So I'm going to go do some closing stuff, have a snack, and I will see you all back on this channel, twitch.tv/beadingdream, in about half an hour. Thanks so much, y'all. Bye.